fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. Time once again for our tri-weekly foray into good old sprint and pit stop racing with the Porsche 911 RSR. It's the Southern Cross ESports Summer Series, the 5th round of the championship at the Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire, the UK. And this is not the current layout of Silverstone we're going to be racing at. It is the historic layout from the original 2008 scan of the track, or 2009 rather. So a bit bumpier, a different layout, and some very fast corners await us here. To bring it to you all live on SimSpeed TV is myself, Reese Gardner. Jay Kennedy is doing double duty tonight. He's with me in the commentary box, and he's also controlling all the cameras behind the scenes and bringing this to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Well, Jay, Southern Cross ESports continues to show. It's one of the best series we broadcast on our channel. It's been great racing all throughout this season, and Silverstone should be no different. I've been looking forward to this one for some time. We go back to a pretty classic circuit here in Silverstone Historic.
100% we do. It was really fun the first time we did this layout, this combination, and looking forward to doing it again. I said to you before we come on air, it almost feels a bit strange seeing the track without the grandstands, pit buildings, and the resurface, but it does feel good to go through the farm corner and down the farm straight and down under the bridge at the back of the circuit in the old Brooklands corner as well. A very cool layout, very historic layout. Hence why it's called the historic layout. You can see on the track map here how much it has changed over the past 15 odd years, with the end of this layout around 2010, 2011, and the reopening of the new version for the 2011 Formula One Grand Prix from memory.
Yeah, indeed. That big chunk taken out of the circuit, the red layout, is the current one, and the layout we're using is highlighted in white, with the alternate layouts highlighted in blue. So a couple of overtaking opportunities removed here with the historic layout, the Abbey chicane and the tight left-hander at club, but means that average speeds are much higher, and we will be seeing a lot of slipstreaming and some passes potentially into turn 1 at Copse, turn 7 at Stowe, and drafting down through Abbey and into Bridge Corner, where we get Priory, Brooklands, and Luffield, a very tight section to end the lap here at the historic layout of Silverstone. And that shall definitely provide some good racing. Plenty of opportunities for overtakes and switchbacks throughout this layout.
Yeah, from memory, last time we raced this layout as well, there was a lot of side-by-side down through that final segment of the track too. So looking forward to watching the guys go side-by-side all that run from out of Club Corner all the way through Abbey Bridge. From there on, there's a lot of side-by-side that can happen. So look for that as the racing progresses. And these cars we've seen throughout this championship series, they're not scared to go side by side at the best of times. So throw them on a track where it actually works. This is going to be some great racing.
Absolutely, it will. I'd be interested to see how close the race is for the lead, though, because Gianni Lutsuk continuing to stamp his authority on this season with 695 points to his name. That is a solid 196 points ahead of Thiago Massadou, who was fastest in the practice session tonight. Cameron Edwards, unfortunately not here tonight, so he won't be able to defend that third place. He's currently over in Bathurst for the real-life 12-hour. Ray Oliver and Kyle Ridley pretty close on points as well for fourth, and that whole pack from Michael Brennan down to Franz Estabauer is looking mighty close, Jay. And I have to say, we were talking about Franz before we went live. He's been on a steady improvement as of late, putting himself into the championship top 10.
100%. And also following it through in the Vs as well. So done very, very well in both Southern Cross ESports series this summer. And it's great to see really good improvement from all sorts of drivers throughout the field. So congratulations to all of the drivers that have been on the improve. There has been a steady progression of improvement in this field throughout from top to bottom, which is great to see. Very, very competitive field as well. Talked about the racing in this series, how fun it is to watch. Fingers crossed we see it again tonight.
Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. The drivers are currently in the 15-minute qualifying session, and same round format as usual for the summer series. 20-minute race one, and you got to make sure that you finish 12th if you're competing for that spot, because you will get pole position for race 2. The top 12 gets reversed for the race 2 grid. They go racing for another 40 minutes then, and there's a compulsory pit stop for 4 tires. The pit window starts, or the pit time window starts 5 minutes into the race, closes with 5 minutes to go. But the actual pit window for tyres is more likely to be around the halfway point of the race. Let's see then what we can do, as Nick Percat is on screen at the moment in the 9.5 Sim Sports machine. Pulls over to let Trevor Hearn go, as Trevor's coming to the end of a hot lap here. And out across the curbs at Luffield. And I've gotten so used to the current layout, it's really weird going back to seeing Luffield and Woodcote as the final corners on this layout and Copse as turn 1. This is around about the halfway point of the lap nowadays, but definitely changes the nature of how you approach the lap here, Jay.
100%. It feels very, very strange, but it does also feel like you're bringing back an old friend or something like that, because it still feels right in the same breath, even though we know it's not right anymore. Very, very cool. So this segment of the track still as it was, no real change here. Even the bridge over the track is still the same, but coming to probably the most easily noticeable difference between the old and the new, coming up to Club Corner here. Of course, just where Trevor Hearn was heading there, that's the new pit entrance. And of course, this is the now Club Chicane, and then onto the now Hamilton Straight. At this point, though, still an unnamed, just bit of a straight before you come up to the kick.
Yeah, and nowadays you divert to the right there, flat out through Abbey, and then through Bridge. This whole section of the track is no longer in use. Bridge and Priory here are consigned to history. Priory, a very difficult corner to get right, and it looks like Trevor Hearn's not happy with the way that sector went, so he's pulled over to let Percat go, and then through Brooklands and into Luffield. These corners, this corner at least, is exactly the same. Brooklands is quite a bit faster now, tightens up on entry. Nick Percat there, though, going into the pit lane. And this start-finish straight still kept for National Series and for extra pit spots for series with big grids. Well, at the moment, Percat, the fastest car in the qualifying session, 1 minute 36.033, and championship leader Gianni Lutsu out there on track at the moment, coming down the hangar straight. He's dragging along Michael Brennan, who has competed for podiums in the last couple rounds of this series, down through Stowe. And this is one of the places where the historic layout diverts. It's a much faster entry into Club Corner, and you still gotta slow down quite a bit to make sure that you don't induce any understeer, because the run onto this flat out stretch through Abbey is so important, and it's a proper braking zone for Bridge Corner. It is still a very quick turn, but you have to take care.
Yeah, 100%. You have to be very, very cautious down through the hill. You can lose it with the compression through there, and we'll probably see a couple of spins as guys start to push very, very aggressively, trying to get a run up to Priory through that little hill there. So interesting to watch. This looks like an actual very, very good lap here from Gianni as well. This could put him P1. The finish line is just under that bridge. You see him just cross over.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Oh, look at that. What a lap. Great job.
Yep, well, 0.16 of a second ahead of Nick Percat at the front of the field, the reigning champion once again, putting himself right at the top of the standings. Here is car number 80, Franz Estebauer for Giant Mangery. Yeah, it does look like a very nice lap at the moment. He's just got to be careful here going into Priory. That was a tight entry, and that's induced a little bit of understeer on the exit. Let's see how much Kirby takes here in Brooklands. Not all that much. He's gone deep once again. It's all about setting up the run for the exit of Luffield. Will he be able to get it done? No, unfortunately. That is a wheel off into the grass. I think that's going to be an off track there for Franz Estebauer on this lap. Yep, he is going to remain in 15th place there. Very unfortunate indeed.
Right at the end of the lap. That is the absolute worst place to get one of those penalties. Unfortunate for him, but he'll push on once again. Jonathan Ackers running the series. Looks like a good lap looking at sector times for him at the moment, so we'll see what he can do. I'm also going to step out. I've been replaced. Reese, Dan Yeaman's going to join you for the rest of the night, and I can sit back and watch with everyone else.
Yeah, Dan just kicked down the door of the commentary booth and said, hey.
He's missed commentating the series too much. We took him off, but he wants back in.
It does indeed. Well, we'll bring you in now, Dan. Pretty good qualifying session going on at the moment. Gianni Lutsu up the top as per normal, but let's see then what Jonathan Ackers can do as he exits Luffield Corner. Doesn't take too much of the curb, but across the line he will come. This is going to be a 1 minute 38.3. Unfortunately, missing out by a tenth. And that all comes down to the final sector here, Dan. Much twistier than it is now, and so hard to get right.
It sure is. Thank you for the introduction of sorts there, both Reese and Jay. And, well, yeah, taking off my team owner, spotter, supporter hat a moment ago elsewhere tonight, and able to put the broadcast or the commentator hat back on. I almost feel as though it's something I don't do all that often, but yeah, lovely to see these cars out here at the legacy and historical version of Silverstone tonight, as we see their friends Estebauer going to a 137.89. Oh, only just off his personal best. You get one more chance to get a lap in here, so he got turn one all right there. One more crack at it, of course. The heat server system used here for the series. Many, of course, that can't finish the lap you're on once the checkered flag comes out. Unfortunately for Kyle Ridley there, Reese has gone a wee bit wide on the exit of Club Corner. That will invalidate the lap he's on there.
That actually will not invalidate the lap. You can take that runoff area on the exit of Club.
Consider me educated then. Old-fashioned.
Yeah, it's something that that still sticks in my mind from when this circuit layout was used often. Yeah, you can go beyond that curb and preserve some speed, but you've got to make sure that you don't clip the grass on the left-hand side as you come back on. That will invalidate the lap for sure.
Well, good to know that one indeed. And yeah, it is quite the experience to see the corners of the Farm Straight, Bridge, Priory into Brooklands once again being utilised here on the iRacing platform as Clint Harvey goes to a 137.2. Unfortunately, has a 136.8 already in the books. And so that will be him done for the qualifying session. No better than 8th for race 1 in that number 55 Direct Industries Porsche RSR. Mike Pepper there in the number 7. Frog Leap Juice Racing looking to improve on a 136.9. Looks like apparently some PBs as he comes to the line. Unfortunately, yes, it's a marginal improvement. We'll take a spot off his teammate Rail over there to move himself to P10.
Yeah, only just, and time is rapidly running out here for John Lee, who's jumped back into the series. I don't think he's going to make it to the line in time here. He isn't. Clock hit 0 just as he was about to come into Woodcote Corner. Well, that's going to end it here for qualifying in round 5 of the Southern Cross ESports Summer Series for 2022 and 2023. And starting out of P1 is car 1, Gianni Lutsu, with Nick Percat alongside. Carl Ridley and Tiago Macedo are going to start on the second row with Trevor Hearn and Paul Brockbank rounding out the top 6. In 7th place, it's going to be Michael Brennan. He's got Clint Harvey for company. Brody Watts and Mike Pepper are going to be starting 9th and 10th. And then we have Ray Oliver and Rob Crisdale rounding out the top 12.
13th place for this race, no, the grid for race number 1, I should say, tonight. That's going to go to Joe Capone in the 111 machine. He'll be sharing that row with Ben Breyer in the 58 Porsche 911 RSR. Franz Esteban there starting out at 15th place. He'll be starting alongside Jonathan Ackers in 16th in the 87. Barry Punter out of P17 there in the 440. We'll be sharing row number 9 with Tom Yakolevic in the number 39. And our final drivers for the night, Dave Hughes there out of position number 19. Dean Hunt in 20th. And John Lee, our 21st and final driver. Keegan Sutton Baker and Nathan Allen will be in the Porsche Cayman GT4s as our race control and safety car teams if required this evening. So a 21-car field for tonight's round of the Southern Cross ESports, the V8 Drive Day Perth Southern Cross ESports Summer Series for 2022-2023. Unfortunately, I've got to actually remember the name of the series again properly, and I'm definitely leaving the sponsor reads to you later on, Reese.
Yes, I'm the one who has the document to read. So we'll get to that in between our races here tonight to thank the brilliant sponsors that you can see on the ticker in the top right corner. Really awesome that Cam Edwards and the crew at Racecraft Simulations have managed to get together all of these sponsors and be able to create such a brilliant little series. Really works well to bring people together, especially in the western region of Australia. Racecraft Simulations is about a half hour's drive away from where I live in Osborne Park in Perth. So really need to get back down there again. Maybe there'll be another end of season presentation night that I can turn up to. And I won't bring my girlfriend this time because apparently it wasn't quite her thing. But either way, the field is moving away, and we have a full formation lap here at Silverstone, which means we can actually take a proper look at slow speed of how this circuit works. This section of the track, as Jay highlighted in qualifying, is exactly the same as it is now, minus some wider, flatter curbs and obviously less bumpy as well. But a very challenging sequence of corners, Dan. You turn in for Maggots and then go through Beckett's and then Chapel. It's so important to get the exit right, but you're pretty much slowing down the whole way through. So difficult to maintain momentum.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, even for these cars here, which are, thinly veiled race cars at this point, more than production cars, turned race cars for the Porsche RSR and the GTE class in general that it competed in. But yeah, it's been a while since I've raced at Silverstone, but all the same, yeah, when you bring it in through Maggots, it's all about having to bleed off some speed, and then you bring it back to the left to enter into Beckett's and again bleed off more speed, but at the same time setting it all up for the run out of Beckett's through the little kink that is Chapel and there onto the hangar straight, and making sure, because of course Stowe Corner here, primary overtaking opportunity here, despite the fact that it is a mid-speed corner. That's just how critical the run off of Beckett's and Chapel is around this place. And then coming down here into past Vale into what would be the club chicane, but this historic layout, a much more flowing configuration here, means it's going to be a little bit more interesting. The bumps will certainly be present as you're talking about through here, Reese, and also the fact that we can run it out past the white lines, which is what you'd normally expect for iRacing track limits, and then bring it up the what is the current front straightaway before returning back to the classic part of the circuit.
Yeah, indeed. This flat out run through Abbey on the historic layout, that is the original layout of that corner on Silverstone, this section of the track being in use since pretty much the inception of the track in the late 1940s. And where the drivers are now is actually the location of the original start-finish line of the circuit. And when they turn right here for Bridge, it went straight on towards Woodcote. Silverstone used to be a much more simple circuit than it is now, but very high speed. It actually was, for a time, one of the fastest circuits in the world. Either way, we only got a couple of turns to go through some of the slowest corners on the lap before we get things started here. And Nick Percat and Gianni Lutsu lead a 9.5 SimSport 1-2 here at the moment. Can they preserve that with the cars of Paul Brockbank and Kyle Ridley in behind them. Gianni Lutzu and Nick Percat coordinate the start well. The green flag flies and we are go for Southern Cross Esports at Silverstone. Into Cops they will come for the first time, side by side. Further back, Trevor Hearn making his way past Paul Brockbank, and it looks like Michael Brennan's going to be following him through as well for 5th place as they come into Maggots and Beckett's. Look at that. All of them getting into single file. Very difficult to make passes there, especially on the first lap. But that was a pretty perfect start there for Gianni Lutzu. Unfortunately, it looks like one car running a little bit wide. That's Ben Breyer there in the 58. He has lost some momentum coming onto the hangar straight, and it was side by side behind him for a second between Joe Capone and Tom Yakovlevic. So let's see then what TJ can do. Big weaving on the way into Stowe, one of the prime overtaking opportunities on the lap on this layout, and to be fair, on any layout of Silverstone, but no opportunity to get by here into Club. So difficult to get the line right there.
See, interesting to see is despite the fact you're pointing out that they are relaxed track limits, a lot of the drivers not going out very wide there on the opening lap of the race, and makes some sense when you think about it, as we have this lovely shot here from just under the bridge here into Bridge Corner, side by side there between the 55 Clint Harvey and Mike Pepper, and Harvey's going to lose out there, having to yield a bit and back off into Priory Corner. That's going to put him in the clutches of Robert Christo on the 808 machine and Brody Watts, as well as Ray Oliver. So several drivers, you can see, all swarming for positions, and up the inside at the final corner will go Watson, and Ray Oliver's around contact side by side. Unfortunately, puts the number 8 machine smack bang in the middle of the circuit and side on there. Thankfully, everyone able to go inside and outside to avoid the trouble. So apart from that, there at the final at Luffield there, Reese, lap 1 done without too much dramas. As we look back up to the fight at the end of the top 5, as Michael Brennan warms up to take aim at the rear of Trevor Hearn's number 4 machine. He looks a little deep there through the second part of Maggots into Beckett's, but isn't hurting the run out there onto Chapel all too much at the moment, it seems.
Yeah, that contact between Brody Watts and Ray Oliver, I don't know if Race Control are going to take a look at that, because it did seem that Brody Watts was holding his line on the inside of the corner, and Ray Oliver cut in to try and straighten the exit onto the start-finish straight. Wasn't really much that Brody could do there, but that all happened because he ran wide coming into Brooklands. That allowed Oliver to get back alongside him after an attempted pass at Bridge Corner. So, on the other side of the circuit at Club, a little bit of blinking up ahead of those guys as Brody Watts now tries his best to put a dent in Rob Crisdale. As we check a little bit more forward to Paul Brockbank, he is drawing up to Clint Harvey something fierce here. Nice wide entry into Priory, but a little bit of understeer in the mid-corner makes sure that he's not able to get a good run. Remember, this series runs the fixed high downforce setup. All drivers are running the exact same suspension and aerodynamic settings. So not much you can do to change the behavior of these cars other than the brake bias and a couple of other associated things as well. End of lap 2, and Gianni Lutzu leads by 0.4 of a second. A pretty good healthy gap there versus Nick Percat, and the top 2 have started to streak away from the rest of the field here. Kyle Ridley is the one leading up a 3-car pack for 3rd place, and then Mike Pepper's a little on his own, and then there's that big pack behind Clint Harvey. John Lee, it seems.
Oh, speaking of Clint Harvey, we'll have to...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to stay on the replay here because John Lee just caught the grass on the exit of Bridge and then heavy into the wall. And speaking of heavy into the wall, that's exactly what happened to Clint Harvey, Dan.
Just as Jay flicked to the virtual racing school replay, here it is to the first part of Maggots and Beckett's, and aggressive over the curbs, and then into Beckett's here you'll see, puts the foot down, and yeah, again, just like John there, over at Bridge, the barest hint of grass on the outside rear tyre. And unfortunately for the 55 car, that meant destination fence rather than heading down the hangar straight as normal. We get a chance to go out to live pictures because Harvey has recovered the car and is on his way. Unfortunately now somewhat back with John Lee in respects. As we're looking here at this fight once again. Now for 7th place, Rockbank leading Crisdale and then Brody Watts to round out this little trio of cars that are somewhat together. Ben Breyer, you can see there on the overlay, is almost on the back of Brody there, just hanging on it. Well, barely a hint inside 1 second, and then actually picks up a couple of hundredths on the way out of Luffield on this particular occasion. Oh, with a squirm there for Chrisdale through Cop's corner that time by. And able to hang on to it, though, and keep the pressure on Brockbank there as they work down into Maggots once again. I'm just having a look towards the front of the field, all spaced out for the moment as well. So this really is where we want to keep our eyes on as we come off of Beckett's and Chapel one more time. Chrisdale inside half a second, make that 3/10. Reese, he's closing with the draft, but he's going to have to be one heck of a send, and Brockbank's ready for the defence.
Yep, nicely on the inside, but a wider turn in there for Chrisdale brings him right up to the bumper, and he gets heavy on the power out of Stowe as well, through the Vale and then into Club. Unfortunately, not much of a chance to get by, but if he gets the exit right out of Club, he's going to pick up a nice slipstream. Seems like a little bit of understeer for Brody Watts behind. He loses a little bit of time to Chrisdale as well. So through Abbey they come, and Chrisdale sticks the nose out again. He's letting Paul Brockbank know that he means business here, and he'll be hoping that Brockbank makes a mistake up ahead, but it seems that Paul is keeping it nice and stable through these corners. Chrisdale, not so much, just ran slightly deep into Brooklands there.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, stable is smooth, and that can be fast. If you go a little aggressive, you might be able to find a bit more speed in turn, but looks like in that particular instance, Chrisdale just a little too aggressive with the rotation efforts there, and that didn't help his efforts. As we quickly check back in with your top two in the race, the 9.5 duo of Lutzu and Percat. You can see here there Nick holding it around that half-second marker, and I wouldn't be too surprised at this point if these two guys are kind of happy just to sort of play friends. No need to race each other all that hard at this stage as we flick through the field as they're working through Maggots and Beckett's. And, well, that might look like a not-so-great tail there for Thiago Massadou, but as we quickly flicked to on the cameras whilst we're on the formation lap, you might remember the number 15 Racecraft Simulations car there. Indeed, did not take the race start as he's looking to the inside now on Jonathan Ackers on the way up here to Stowe, and very narrow entry, but able to get it pulled up under brakes and clears Ackers on corner exit to take a more conventional run out of turn. So that is up another place from what was effectively 21st to 14th there for the number 15 car race.
Yeah, Ackers left Massadou just enough room on the inside, not much more. Meanwhile, here's Chrisdale trying up the inside of Brockbank once again at Bridge, but no success so far. Chrisdale, remember, started 12th. He is motoring his way up the field at the moment. He's looking to make it 5 positions gained, and that was a nice aggressive exit from Brooklands. Unfortunately, not much space between Brooklands and Luffield to get up the inside. And he is really wheeling that car around. Unfortunately for him, that means Brody Watts has been brought right back into contention here. You see Watts on the bottom of the screen, right in Chrisdale's rear end camera. So plenty for Chrisdale to think about here, as there is not much time left in this race. We are just about to come up to the halfway point. They're proper sprints here in Southern Cross Esports. How does the exit of Beckett's go and through Chapel? Very nicely done from all drivers involved, nice and clean. But of course, Chrisdale's still very much in the slipstream of Paul Brockbank, and he'll have another chance to get one up the inside at Bridge this lap. It seems to be his favourite overtaking spot.
Yeah, not too surprising there in terms of it's one of those options, I guess, that on this particular, you've got a plenty good run up from all the way here at Club Corner. So you get a good chance to build solid speed. Again, a mid-speed turn, but never mind that, because that's a bit wide there from Brockbank through said corner as we make our way up past what would have been Abbey. Now just a little kink in the road here. Chrisdale showing the nose all the way up to Bridge. He will lunge it up the inside this time, but Brockbank, it's some very nice momentum around the outside. We'll hold now the inside for Priory and force the crisscross into Brooklands, but no, we'll get in deep, but that's too deep. Chrisdale sees the gap open up on the inside. The move is finally made, but that ended up taking 3/4, where I'm sure Chrisdale would rather that took just the one. But Brody Watts, now his turn to line up Brockbank for a move at some point here, but looks like turn 1 not going to be the answer. Is good run off of Luffield despite that frenzy there a couple of corners prior.
Yep, going deep into Brooklands is certain death in these cars, and going wide at Cops isn't much better. That was Ben Breyer who took to the AstroTurf and the runoff there. Very slippery once you get off the circuit, so good job for Breyer to keep that nice and straight. Ray Oliver in car 8, meanwhile, he is recovering from that earlier incident with Brodie Watts. He's right on the back of Jonathan Ackers, and Ackers going a little bit narrow there into Beckett's. Oliver, I'm noticing that his car behavior is a little bit squirrely through those fast corners. He's pushing very hard, obviously. Ackers, defensive, into Stowe. Oliver widens the entry to the corner, and hello, gets alongside almost at the apex, but couldn't quite turn in as aggressively as he wanted to. Ackers remains ahead.
Yeah, it was good defense up the inside of Stowe corner there. From that particular angle, it looks like, yeah, Oliver turned in too tight and got too much rotation through the corner, had to bail on it. He's going to try and force the inside issue out of club corner. Meanwhile, in the grass, Brockbank and Brodie Watts up through Priory and Ridge. Oh, unfortunately for Brockbank, he's out in the weeds now, trying to recover his car as Oliver does get the job done there through Bridge Corner. And there you go, that's the new, the Wellington Straight there as Brockbank is recovering the car now down at Brooklands. But just as we were calling that moment there between Ray Oliver and Jonathan Ackers, trouble elsewhere on the road. So we might have to try and get hands on another Virtual Racing Score replay. And here we go. Thanks to producer Jack Kennedy, and unfortunately, it's all been on Brockbank there, going in a bit too quick through Bridge Corner.
Yeah, you can carry a lot of speed through Bridge, and these cars do produce a good amount of downforce with that big honking diffuser at the rear, but unfortunately, Brockbank just a little bit too fast into the grass and barely avoided cleaning up Brodie Watts. Meanwhile, Massadou is in 12th spot, and you'll see a yellow line on the timing tower there that denotes the positions affected by the grid invert for the second race. Tiago, having just made his way past Franz Esterbauer, and is starting to streak away at the moment. Tiago's last lap was a 1 minute 37.6. Compare that to a 1 minute 39.9 for Esterbauer. He is on board, meanwhile, with the number 19 of Paul Brockbank, and yeah, wow. Part of that was just going into the corner too fast, and I think also just opening up the steering, seeing that there was a lot of space being made up in too short a time.
Yeah, unfortunately there, a rare sign of a bit of driver error and overcommitment from Brockbank after the excellent defensive driving we'd seen from him in the laps prior, and as a result, unravels and sends him back down to now 14th place. He'll be looking to try and catch up to and then try and get past Franz Esterbauer before the race is done, but time is not on his side with, well, barely 6.5 minutes left in this race. You can see there, Jay Lutsu eking out a margin towards this 1.1, 1.2 seconds. There's been brazen another moment out of Cops. A bit more lawn mowing, just like we saw there for, a couple laps ago. As you watch these guys work their way down the hangar straight. You can see in the background, Trevor Hearn inside half a second on Kyle Ridley, trying to get in close there, but not close enough this time by Reese, but certainly trying to size up that number 5 Frog Leap Juice racing car by the looks of things. As there we go, on for 11th. Tiago Massadou will not be stopped, it seems, on his charge through the back half of the field here. Reese round the outside into Stowe. He won't quite get it done on entry, but he will get it done through the mid-corner and exit, I think. No, he won't.
Yeah, well, it looks like TJ just yielding there into club. Pushing it side by side through there would not be a good idea, unless it was the final lap, of course, and you had a big gap to everyone behind. That's brought Franz Esterbauer back into the fight for race 2 pole position, so we'll see what the giant Mandurah car can do on the way through the final sector. It's a nice entry to Bridge there from Esterbauer, and he's sticking the nose up there into Priory. Proper heavy braking zone, especially without the Abbey chicane in use on this layout. It seems that TJ has gathered it back up a little bit. Try to manage the oversteer, though, as, oh dear, that is off there for Trevor Hearn at Copse Corner. This is going to be interesting here in the fight for third place. What can Kyle Ridley do? He has to get on the throttle nice and early, make sure that he doesn't do what Clint Harvey did and stick it into the grass coming into Chapel. And it looks like he's managed to keep it nice and stable there.
He has, but now he's got to make up all the work that he'd already done. Well, getting onto the back bumper of Kyle Ridley's Porsche 911 RSR there, so have to size him up and try again. At another point, you would think the run down towards Stowe there. I'm going to get my Silverstone corner names right and try not to remember to flick back to the map all too much. But yes, so there is that going on there as they now work their way back up past Abbey once again as we're approaching 4 minutes on the clock. My timing reckons it's 3 laps to go at the line for these guys. We'll jump on board with the number 4 from the 949 Motorsport Stables through Bridge and Priory there into the final couple of corners here at Brooklands and Luffield. Looks like they're in the slower speed turns, Reese, there. That Ridley's advantage looks a little more apparent as they work their way then onto the front straight here.
Yeah, as the car speed comes down, obviously the car produces less downforce, so maybe Kyle Ridley is feeling a little more comfortable there with a little less downforce at his disposal. Trevor Hearn, meanwhile, once the downforce builds up through these high-speed corners, definitely seems like he's got a better handle on things. Let's see how much ground he makes up here through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Things stay pretty stable. Hearn nice and aggressive over the curbs, and that is one curb that you can definitely put the whole car on and get away with, but not quite close enough to get a move done into Stowe when they come off the hanger straight. The gap is at 0.6 of a second there, and not changing all that much. He's going to have to get a little closer.
Bit of a tangle further on back here in the field, Reese, and indeed, Jay's been able to pick this one up for me here. Franz Esterbauer very slow out of Copse Corner down into Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. And Paul Rockbank wanted a piece of the pie, but wasn't able to get alongside cleanly. Side-to-side contact actually bumped him and killed the momentum and allowed Ray Oliver through there for 14th place. We check it out here on the virtual racing school replays. Pardon me, actually, probably wasn't that. It was got all kinds of loose and Ray Oliver up the inside. Bit of a bump pass there, side by side. Both cars look to have not taken much, if any, damage, but just a little moment there for those two as they're both still trying to recover some bits and pieces. But it now means that, well, they'll be starting outside the invert, I'm sure, because they've got to get round Esterbauer, and TJ is another 2.5 seconds up the road from Ray Oliver at this point. But Oliver looks to the inside prior, and in fact, it's going to be all he needs to do. Forces Esterbauer to evade and, well, run very wide there through the corner. And now it'll be Rockbank's turn to try and size up a move as we are coming to 2 laps to go here in the opening race tonight, Reese. And yeah, again, whilst the action up front seems pretty decided, the racing here in the mid-pack continuing to provide a good show for us here in the commentary booth, and I hope for all of those watching along with us on the broadcast.
Indeed. Well, this 3-car pack, now, their real target is TJ up ahead. You see him in the background, a shot there. He is the man currently in 12th spot, and if he can keep this pace up over the last couple of laps, he'll guarantee that. 1 minute 38.8 for his last lap, and basically Oliver running a 38.5 on the last lap, but his fastest lap in the race so far has been a 37.3. That was very early on in the run, though, so we'll have to wait and see what kind of pace Oliver can extract here. He currently runs 2.1 seconds behind TJ, and I think unless there's a big mistake from the 12th place guy, Oliver will have to settle for lucky 13th.
Yeah, we'll see here. Got a little bit of time left to try and make something work here, but we're going to have to wait and see about that as they work their way out of Club Corner one more time and up through Abbey. Keeping your eyes on the gaps there as it's 1.6 seconds between Ray Oliver and TJ up the road from him as they then sweep through Bridge and Priory. Is also potentially brewing for 6th place between 2 more of the Frog Leap cars. It's Mike Pepper ahead of Robert Crisdale, but half a second between them as they'll come and take the white flag from Barney there at the line. As looks like indeed Nick Percat has backed off even further, down to 2 seconds, even more. Now from the rear of Gianni Lutsu. Meanwhile, it's also on for third. One final chance here. Reese as Trevor Hearn sizes up Kyle Ridley best he can off of Maggots, Beckers and Chapel, and the Hangar Straight is his next opportunity.
Yeah, he's close enough now for the slipstream to really come into effect. Ridley does the defensive line, and that leaves a lot of space there for Hearn to shorten the braking zone and widen his entry into the corner. Once they get to the apex, though, speed is equalized. And now Hearn's last chance is going to be either Bridge, Priory, or Brooklands at this stage. Let's see how good of an exit he gets. Uses a little bit more of the runoff area in his pursuit. And then through Abbey they come, completely flat out through here. And you see him drawing up on Ridley as they come into Bridge. But it seems like it's just not enough. He's going to have to make a desperate lunge up the inside as 12th is on. Now it seems that there was a mistake for TJ, and Ray Oliver is now coming up to him. We are going to have to turn our attention to the front, though, because Gianni Lutsu just exiting Luffield Corner. Up the top of the screen, you see him taking the race 1 victory here as John Lee lets him go. It is still on for 12th place, and there was a bit of a look there from Ray Oliver. Nice defensive line there from TJ, and it looks like he might have just done enough here. Very late on the brakes, says Oliver, into Luffield, but it's not going to be enough. Or is it? He is just creeping up on him through Woodcote. It's going to be close. It's going to be oh so close. Oliver sneaks up the inside on the way to the line, but TJ gets it and will start on pole for the second race.
Close there indeed. The gap at the line in the mere hundredths of a second there. So good stuff between those two as our last couple of drivers work their way across the line and give us a chance to go to our race results here for the opening run here tonight in the Southern Cross ESports Summer Series. Thanks to V8 Drive Day Perth. And well, after being sort of in the half-second margin for most of the race, Gianni Lutsu walks that lead out to 3.6 seconds over teammate Nick Percat there in second place. Kyle Ridley also hangs on ahead of Trevor Hearn by 2/10 and change there for third and fourth between those two respectively. Michael Brennan, bit of a lonely night there it seems based on the numbers, in 5th place in the 89 machine there. Mike Pepper just ahead of Robert Crisell, 2 of the Frog Leap Juice racing cars there for 6th and 7th place respectively. And then just a little bit further on back, Brody Watts there, 8th place for him in the number 3 machine tonight. Ben Breyer will bring it home there in 9th place. Thiago Masdu making up to 10th place from the back of the grid with not taking the start there, Reese. And then, of course, our final 2 spots that matter when it comes to the invert tonight, Joe Capone and TJ sharing the front row there with 11th and 12th in this race, of course, translating to 1st and 2nd in race number 2 coming up soon.
Yep, Franz Esteban missing out, unfortunately, with... looks like there was a problem for Ray Oliver. He's actually been hit back to 19th place for some reason. I don't know if that's for cutting the last corner or exceeding the incident limit. There's no off track for cutting the last corner. Either way, looks like Oliver might have gotten a slowdown, so potentially that has ballooned into another penalty that's put him further back. But either way, that's the rest of your field, and they are going to start in that order there from 13th back for race 2. Before we do that, though, we're going to take a moment here in the warm-up session to thank the sponsors of this series at the home of British motor racing. Of course, we can't go without thanking our main sponsor, V8 Drive Day Perth, Perth's greatest driving experience. They offer rides and hot laps and specially prepared V8 race cars around Wanneroo Raceway. You can be the passenger or the driver in the closest thing you can get to what Australia's best do every weekend. Visit them and book your session at v8driveday.com.au. Over at Word of Mouth Signs, Pip Allen works to provide the best in signs and graphics, doing everything from vinyl wraps for cars, vans, premises, and much more, to laser engraving and graphic design. No job is too small. Head over to wordofmouthsigns.com.au or call on 0400 551 555. VRace Experience is Perth's best full-motion simulator experience located in the heart of Osborne Park. They use Motum simulators, professional hardware, and class-leading virtual reality goggles, so you can race like a pro and get fully immersed. To find out more, go to vrace.com.au. And we can't go without mentioning Motum themselves. Their unique patented True Motion technology delivers 6 degrees of freedom in a fully immersive VR environment. They deliver motion simulator solutions across Australia and internationally, working with many leading brands. To learn more, head to motumsimulation.com. Meanwhile, Liquimoly coming on board for this season, a global automotive brand made in Germany, a world-renowned manufacturer of premium quality automotive supplies. Anything you could need for any vehicle, Liquimoly offers it at any good automotive supplier. To learn more, go to liquimoly.com.au. And of course, tonight's racing wouldn't be possible without 24/7 Sim Services, who are handling race control tonight, an independent provider of live race control, rulebooks, officiating, and more on all sim racing platforms. Check them out at 247simservices.com. We still have a couple of minutes left here in the warm-up session before we go live for race 2. And I've got to say, Dan, with the way things went, I wouldn't be surprised if Gianni Lutzu and Nick Percat work their way back through to at least finish in the top 3 for this second race. But I think Trevor Hearn has some unfinished business, as does Ray Oliver.
I'm sure they would like to make their way forward, and well, they too will have to make their way forward as well. So do keep that in mind. They do have a little bit of an advantage in their starting position, but not going to be all that much, I suspect. And yeah, also seeing in the chat, Reese, that David Hughes hitting some kind of penalty at the end of the race as well. So that seems to verify the suspicions there that the final, well, cutting the corner there at Woodcote, very easy to do so, and therefore pick up a penalty that cannot be served in time before you get to the start-finish line here on this historic and legacy, well, the historical legacy version of Silverstone. So that seems to be a case of needing to be careful of that one there at the end of race number 2, to be sure. Of course, 40 minutes to sort that one out there. And well, before we go to the grid, one final thing that has popped up in the broadcast chat over on YouTube this evening. Reese, congratulations to Michael Brennan, who's, well, despite saying he didn't have any practice tonight, has got a bit of an excuse for that. He's decided to go get himself hitched with a wedding tomorrow.
Oh, excellent stuff. Congratulations, Michael, and your very soon-to-be partner. Hopefully, you end up getting another good result here tonight in the top 10. There'll be plenty to work towards before that can happen, though. A very interesting field indeed, with TJ and the number 39 starting on pole position, and Joe Capone is the man alongside him there in that Racecraft Simulations car in the blue. Just behind them, they also have Tiago Massadou and Ben Breyer, with Brodie Watson, Rob Crisdale rounding out the top 6. Mike Pepper's going to start out a 7th with Michael Brennan alongside him. Trevor Hearn, Kyle Ridley, Nick Percat, and Gianni Lutzu round out your inverted top 12. And as we go down through the grid, well, it is the exact order that they finished in race 1, Dan. So let's see what they can do to work themselves into the top 10 from here. It's going to be challenging, especially with the fastest drivers starting in 12th and trying to make their way through.
Yeah, it will be. I think, as you said, Ray Oliver's one of the drivers I think to be obviously keeping an eye on, because a bit like Tiago Massadou there in race 1, a driver out of position when it comes to sheer pace. Of course, with Tiago starting this one in P3, this could be an opportunity for him to try and get an early break if he can clear the front row of TJ and Joe Capone in the opening couple of corners. And, well, to be honest, with the way that Gianni Lutzu and Nick Percat have had pace in this season that I've seen on and off in this summer series this year, I would fully expect them to make their way through and be right at the front once again. But I guess it's more a question then of, can Tiago put up a fight with that bit of head start he'll have once he can clear the front 2 cars. And saying that, you've also got, as you said, Trevor Hearn, Brodie Watts, all these kinds of drivers certainly looking to try and put up a fight tonight. Even Kyle Ridley, while he'll be starting directly ahead of Gianni, certainly someone who now has a bit of advantage and not playing catch-up right from the get-go. It'll be all about who's willing to be aggressive, but who can be sensible at the same time when it comes to their traffic management and negotiation here as we watch the cars make their way around the pace lap once again and enjoy the view here from the end of the hangar straight as they all wind their way onto said straight. Race in formation there. We've got all of our drivers this time, pardon me, taking to the start, I believe. No, correction, there is one person who is missing the start once again. It's another one of the racecraft simulation cars in the hands of John Lee, the 33 machine.
Yep, just sitting in the pits, and once the field goes by, after taking the race start, he'll get the green flag and will be able to move away. It seems that John Lee has not had a very good time tonight. Of course, finishing a lap down in the first race, and I think suffering a crash on the way as well, was off the pace in qualifying as well. So it's been a difficult evening for the number 33. But we'll see if he can get another classified finish here tonight. Getting to the end of a race is just as much of an achievement as finishing well in most cases. So they stay side by side behind the pace car here. And every driver will be sizing up where the best opportunities are to get past people. TJ, of course, on pole position is the one who will control the start after the pace car comes in. And Joe Capone will have to be right on it if he wants to get an advantage here.
Yeah, this will be interesting to watch, of course. The inverted top 12 is always something that adds a little bit of spice where it goes. And yeah, we'll see how these drivers can make the most of the clean track. Of course, once the iRacing pace car pulls in, we're under the control of TJ as to when exactly he wants to go. We saw there in race 1, Jay Lutsu waiting moments before the green lights and flag from Barney on the timing stand were given. So see, he's actually backing up a tiny bit out of Brooklands on this particular occasion. So actually have to be careful for Capone. In fact, I think he's going extremely early. Yes, he is. He has caught them all. Absolutely. No, he's too soon. Too soon. He's gone too soon. That's the result. He slammed on the anchors. That's going to wait. It means we're all waiting for the green flag from Barney this time instead. So we are away after that slight misstart for race number 2 here at Silverstone. They worked into turn 1. A bit of contact in the mid-pack between, that was Michael Brennan, I believe Trevor Hearn, and then contact between one of the Frog Leap cars and Hearn sends him wide at turn 1 as Ben Breyer also ducks wide into the weeds. And as a result, we've got drivers left, right, and centre as we come down to Maggots, Beckett, and Chapel for the first time here, Reese.
Yeah, and Franz Estebauer got into the grass on the exit of Cox on the inside as well as Oliver. Oh boy, he is off once again. His night just goes from bad to worse, and that was coming into Maggots. It is on for the lead as well. Joe Capone up the inside of TJ and gets into the race lead, almost a change for third as well.
It's actually Tiago Macedo who's made his way through, Reese.
Yes,
off
Thiago.
Of the race start there. All good. They are running the same paint scheme, so I don't blame you for making a minor mistake there as we go on board with the number 7 of Mike Pepper. Currently running in 6th, up a spot off his race start. You can see here, there's the wide run through Club Corner, trying to maintain the speed. He's looking at the back. 3 wide there with one of the Frog Leap cars. That's Carl Ridley, Michael Brennan, Nick Percat, Johnny Lutzer will win against it together. It's Brennan up the inside of Ridley as they come through bridge for the first time, and then up the inside of one of his teammates there, which would be Lutzu, but Ridley a little bit into the rear at Prairie. He's going to try and dive up the inside of Brooklands, and in fact, it's going to be Ben Breyer as well up the inside through Brooklands. It is Sendfest, it seems, here on lap number 1. These drivers trying to take full advantage of some of the drivers here, particularly our 9.5 SimSport drivers here, trying to work their way through steadily and safely. And Brennan a little loose there on the exit of Woodcote as well. As we're going to go to the next of our virtual racing school replays. First of race 2, and there we go. Hip check contact between, I believe that might have been Nick Percat and Carl Ridley to start that all off there, Reese.
Yeah, one of the 9.5 cars in any case. And then it really came down to it into the twisty final sector. There's what happened to Ben Breyer. He's just gotten the rear end loose coming through Cops. Now, does that turn into a full spin? Doesn't look like it. He has saved it, but that's a very dangerous spot to go for a big slide right off the racing line on the exit of a corner. Back to live pictures though, as the first lap has been completed. Actually, this is still on the replay, it seems. Are you sure it's live, Jay? There we go. So there we go. Through Abbey, and looking for moves all throughout. Kyle Ridley has gone for a big slide through Bridge Corner, and he is off the circuit. He does get things going again, though. There was a pass attempt on the inside from Gianni Lutsu, and there wasn't any contact. But unfortunately for Kyle Ridley, just went a bit too deep and lost the rear once more.
It's unfortunate to say the least. As also some drivers reporting concerns with Mike Pepper's connection to the server at the moment, which might be causing some issues. We'll have a look at that one there again on the next of our Virtual Racing School replays. And yeah, tries to cut across the nose of Lutsu there at Bridge, and the rear end says, I've got grip, but that's too much that you're asking of me there, and let's go in a squeal of heat and smoke as it slides across the circuit. And therefore, going to be a long way back up now from P12 for the number 5 machine as we look at the field streaking down the hangar straight. That will be Brody Watts looking up the inside of Joe Capone, make it the outside, into Stowe Corner, but not going to get it done this time, Reese. They're all stacked up behind TJ still, who's currently in 3rd place. Robert Crusdale and Thiago Massadou, the 2 cars to get through at this point. And it is actually starting to really advantage drivers like Massadou. 4 seconds from 1st to 3rd place. And then this scrum here on back is all still tightly bunched together and going to have to sort things out pretty quickly if they want to go catch the race leader, Reese.
Well, it's only half a minute until the pit window opens. Will they be able to get to the pit entry by the time 35 minutes to go is hit? I don't know. I don't think so. Because I think the best thing to do for these guys would be to jump into the pits, because it's very difficult for them to get past TJ, as that's a big spin. That's taken out Nick Percat. Mike Pepper going for a spin, and Percat involved in that too. And looks to me like Trevor Hearn got himself all crossed up in there too. 35 minutes to go. They could have gone into the pits if they wanted to.
They could have, but also consider the fact that they also have a fuel tank restriction in these cars tonight, Reece. And short of safety car interventions, I'm yet to see a driver successfully pull off a pit stop in this series by coming in exactly when the pit window opens. So I believe that was probably the right call from these drivers to stay out. They've probably got a lap number in mind when it comes to when they'll be safe to come in for a refuel. Another Virtual Racing School replay to have a look at what happened there through Brooklands. And, well, I have to say, I don't think Nick Percat's done anything all that wrong. The door was open because of Gianni Lutsu going up the inside, and Mike Pepper's just turned on down. And it's going to indeed be a black flag from our race control team here tonight for the number 7 of Mike Pepper. That seems a little harsh. We're going to keep on the replays here, Reese. Go to the onboard with Nick Percat to have a look at it here. And at the same time, I guess you can sort of see why it's a drive-through, because it does cause contact between the two of them and also disrupt Hearn, but almost self-penalising as well, perhaps. I guess it depends on how you sort of want to play things out as we go back to live pitches there.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision. Well, there's some drama here already in this race as Gianni Lutsu tries to work his way through here, gets up the inside of Joe Capone, who started in 2nd, and lunges into Luffield round the outside, cuts in narrow for the exit, controls the oversteer nicely. So Gianni Lutsu has made his way up into 4th by the time we get to the end of the 4th lap. And he just has TJ up ahead of him here. There was once a big pack behind TJ, but that big incident has put paid to that. There's now a pack from 7th on back, Clint Harvey, who's just gone wide there, coming out of Cops, and that's going to allow Michael Brennan through on the way into Maggots and Beckett's, and also looking for a piece of the pie is Kyle Ridley, who is on a recovery drive.
Yeah, we've got a lot of drivers still out of position thanks to early incidents here as we watch the run out of Beckett's and Chapel for Ridley and Harvey. And Harvey does not have the run, but he has the inside line all covered here. So it has to be the long way around at Stowe. And in fact, Harvey contact with Ridley forces the issue in the middle of the road, but that's the kind of contact that shouldn't be spinning, Ridley, I have to say. That's incredibly cruel to the number 5 to go around and be sent back to 14th place this time. There as he gets the car going once again. And I'm going to seeing another penalty come through from race control for Paul Brockbank as we go to the replay once again here, Reese. We see Ben Breyer there on the left. It's Barry Punter. Oh, centre of screen there, the 440. And so they've gotten tangled together at top Cop's corner. And Punter is straight on, lock brakes, and barely keeps it off the wall at the end of the runoff.
Oh, goodness me. Well, that is what happens when you're side by side on a straight and you make ever so slight contact with the car next to you. You both get sent off, at least in these cars. So out of Luffield, these guys come once again. The battle for what is now 8th spot, with Clint Harvey having yielded that position to Michael Brennan the lap before. We go to another replay to see what happened to Kyle Ridley, and he turned down maybe a little bit early as Harvey was trying to open up the entry to the corner. It seemed that Harvey was giving enough room around the outside on the way in, just delayed his turn in a little bit, and that created a bit of instability in Ridley's car, and around he went. Unsuccessful in getting past Harvey has been Trevor Hearn and Nick Percat, and if you take a close look at Percat's car behind, you can see that the front bumper, is a little bit dented on the right-hand side. That could be affecting the aerodynamic performance of his car. A little bit hobbled on the way through here as we check back to Kyle Ridley, having made his way just past David Hughes for lucky 13th position. Ridley has Dean Hunt and friends Estabauer up ahead of him now.
Yep, so another recovery drive, take 2 as well. Hello, there's a car parked there on the inside. That would be Jonathan Ackers, who's unfortunately gone a lap down, along with Mike Pepper and Jonathan Lee already. So not too great for a couple of our drivers towards the back of the field, but able to stay out of the way there through Abbey Corner. So credit to that one there as we focus back in on Harvey, Hearn and Percat for 8th, 9th and 10th. And you can see here a lot more confidence through the mid-corner for Trevor Hearn, but Clint Harvey's positioning of that 55 machine looks to be solid as our first taker for the compulsory pit service will be Mike Pepper in the number 7 Froglet Juice Racing entries. These three continue to carry on. No Linus Sterners just ahead of them. Gianni Lutzu decided to do some lawn mowing there. Pardon me, apologies. That's Michael Brennan, the 89, one of the other 9.5 cars. Gianni's already up in 3rd place. But be curious to keep an eye up on that 3rd to 1st gap as the race goes on, because he's not yet made inroads in terms of the margin, despite having a bit of slipstream there, it seems. So that would be handy for him, but he's got to go catch Tiago Master, and he hasn't quite made inroads on that for the past lap, I'd say.
Yeah, you saw he was a little unstable on the way into Stowe as well. Had to have a couple of goes at turning in there with the rear end dancing about. Meanwhile, TJ once again under massive pressure from Brodie Watts and Joe Capone. This is the fight for 4th place on track at the moment. And TJ, with a much straighter exit out of club, gains a bit of an advantage on the way through to Abbey. So now what Brodie Watts has to do is rein it in a little bit, I think. You know, not be too aggressive as TJ was just then. Got a massive oversteer moment through bridge, but held it amazingly. But that's brought them much closer now. And very deep there is Brodie Watts and nearly gets into the gravel. Capone says, "Thank you very much, mate. I will take that 5th place from you."
Yeah, got a lot of drivers here who feel like they probably should be further forward than they are as we continue to watch here. Harvey, Hearn and Percat, and that's a big slide through Luffield corner for Trevor Hearn. Inside open for Nick Percat, and already ahead before we get to Cop's corner as they reform into single file there. As Michael Brennan's doing some more lawn mowing on the exit of the corner. That's 2 laps in a row for the 89, running a bit wide through Cops. Hasn't hurt his position or his momentum all that much, but he doesn't want to do that too many more times. As we're going to go look at virtual replay, the fight for 2nd race into Cop's corner as well. Johnny Lutz up the inside of Rob Crisdale, and, well, once he gets the high ground with the apex there, that's a fairly signed, sealed and delivered move there for the number 1 machine.
Yep, showing that just about every corner here at Silverstone can be an overtaking opportunity in the right cars. as we go back to live pictures. It seems these guys are really catching up now to that pack between TJ, Joe Capone, Brody Watts, and Michael Brennan. This is going to become a 7-car train pretty soon, unless one of these guys decides to take an early pit stop. But once again, the cork in the bottle is Tom Yakovlevich. So let's see what kind of pace he can keep up here. A little bit slower through bridge, and that opens up the door for an inside move from Joe Capone. TJ has to stay wide there, and the door is now open for Brody Watts to try and get through. Getting caught on the marbles a little bit as TJ with Watts, then getting bumped around. Unfortunately, turned in a slight bit too early, and there's potential for a bit of network contact as well there. Not too sure how to decipher that one, but regardless, that has put Brody Watts all the way back to 10th place as there's more drivers coming into the pits. Clint Harvey has decided to jump in on lap 8.
Yeah, but he's the only one from the group to choose to do so. I mean, can understand why you might want to try and stay out on track and just maintain pace, but especially for these 9.5 SimSport guys, we know that Brennan and Percat, maybe not quite to the same extent, but close enough to Lutzu's pace, are quick, but they're still opting to dogfight it out here with these guys, and they're really making slow progress and costing themselves huge amounts of time in the process. We have a look at another virtual racing replay of the incident there, and the angle doesn't quite confirm it, but I'm going to suspect, Reese, there was a bit of a gap indeed between the cars of TJ and Brody Watts there. As we go back to live pictures, looking here now at Trevor Hearn, who is trying to chase down, pardon me, where is Trevor Hearn? He's currently in 8th place. It's his turn to try and get past TJ and Nick Percat, who are the two cars directly ahead of him here.
Well, Percat shouldn't have too much trouble jetting away from TJ at this stage. You can see that TJ keeps running a little bit wide of the apex of bridge, which is hurting his pace ever so slightly, but nothing much Trevor Hearn can do about that at the moment. TJ's still holding on very nicely to that position, just diving into every single corner, keeping up the mid-corner momentum, and then nailing pretty much every exit, though he did run a little bit narrow on the exit of Luffield there. Slight bit of extra speed out from Trevor Hearn. Not close enough to get by into Cops. So he'll have to wait until Stowe, unless TJ runs wide onto the AstroTurf, which he does, and manages to get by as Brody Watts makes his way into the pits. There we go then, confirmed. Trevor Hearn has made his way past TJ.
Yeah, clear enough. That was fairly straightforward as we check back in with the man now in P2 and has made some progress there on the gap to your race leader, Tiago Massadou, but it's only about, if it holds at 4.8, call it 3/10 or thereabouts, since it was up at around 5.1 when he was on the back of Rob Christo. We can see there in a couple of spots he's making some really solid time. Then it flicks back to 4.8 through Club Corner there. We'll see if this gap comes down. It looks quick in a straight line, which makes not a huge amount of sense, but you can see there we go. Last 3 laps between your race leader, Massadou, and Gianni Lutzu there in 2nd place. And if he comes at him a 10th per second, that's not going to be enough. He's going to need to make some more wholesale gains. There is, of course, the pit stop, which will potentially open up, strategic calls, risks, and gambles that could play out poorly for one driver or the other. But we'll have to wait and see as we go back to the fight. It's now for 4th place on back. Capone leading Brennan, Percat, and Hearn. Any takers for the pits? The answer is no. None of these drivers still opting to get the stop done early at the very least. They'd rather stick together, it seems, and take the slipstream, I think.
Yeah, looks like it at this stage, but I'm starting to think now about what the strategy's actually going to be, because one thing we have yet to talk about for the entire night is the weather conditions. It is partly cloudy out there, but the track temperature is 42 degrees Celsius, and that's quite warm. It means with the amount of work being put into these tires through these high-speed corners on pretty rough and old surface here at Silverstone, there's going to be a lot of heat put into those tires. Lutzu seems to have gotten his mojo back, taking half a second out of Tiago Massadou on the last lap. but I think if he really wants to have a chance at passing him, he's going to have to make sure that he gets an undercut. Remember, it's mandatory to replace all 4 tyres, and once you replace them on a warm track, you will gain a lot of time, especially if you come out in clear air.
That's true. Well, in saying that, we said that you saw there that, yeah, Lutzu getting that half-second time advantage on that last lap, but I have to say he didn't actually go all that much faster. In fact, no, Lutzu only 1/10 of a second quicker. As we see, Michael Brennan up the inside, Joe Capone and Nick Perkett going to follow through there on the exit of Priory. I think there was a bit of a complaint over the radio there about defensive maneuver up through Abbey in the farm straightaway from Capone, but nevertheless, the work job is now done for the 95 Cinesport cars, and only one of them will take to the pit lane in the form of Nick Perkett. So interesting to see they're splitting the strategy here amongst the 9.5 cars. I'm going to keep my eyes on, the race list, but it looks like, it's not so much that Gianni Lutzu is going quicker. It's really a case of Thiago Massadu's having his pace fall off like a stone here.
Yeah, I can see that. 1 minute 37.6 on the last lap, 1:37.2 for Gianni Lutzu. Have a look at that. That's another 4/10 taken out of our leader. And yeah, Massadu, it seems, not quite able to look after the tyres like Gianni Lutzu is able to. So perhaps the idea now for Massadu is, does he pit now and get fresh rubber, try and extend that gap back out for when Lutzu eventually pits, or does he back off a bit, decide to pit later, and give himself the biggest advantage possible with fresh tyres and not many laps to the end? More pitters, meanwhile. Nick Perkett, Kyle Ridley and Dean Hunt both making their way through the lane and changing all 4 tyres. And you can expect that a pit stop with all 4 tyres changed and a little bit extra fuel in the tank will take about 38 to 40 seconds. But Dean Hunt is in there a little bit longer than he wants to, it seems.
Yeah. Well, if I was in Massadu's case, I would believe that, well, pitting early, that's good and all for your initial pace, but doesn't help you when you then have a long run to do towards the end of the events, and you've got that same issue when it comes to tyre performance as Rob Crisdale, Michael Brandon and Trevor Hearn all went to the pit lane, and they all came in quite aggressively locking up the tyres. In the meantime, I didn't think TJ was much of an issue out there on track, but the number 39 driver has picked up a black flag for an incident back on lap number 8 there. So that will see him down the lane in addition to his compulsory stop yet to be completed. So unfortunately for him, that will send him tumbling further on down the order, despite the fact that, well, he'll still yet to come to the pit lane. It means we're looking now here at a fight between Ray Oliver and Franz Estebar for 5th place. Although in saying that, how long has it been since Ray Oliver passed Franz? Not too long ago, I'd say. Reese may be to the tune of about a minute or so. Or even 30 seconds, perhaps. No, a little bit longer than, apologies. But nevertheless, that those two drivers exchange places is the TLDR of the situation, really, I guess. And we should expect Ray Oliver to pull away in due course. Small moment for Barry Punter through Beckett's. Lewis gathered the car back up, and he'll be on his way. And looks like Michael Brennan going 1 lap longer than teammate Nick Perkett has worked out in his favour on the pit stops.
Okay.
Although Perkett was really flogging the car through Cop's corner to try and get out ahead. He'll have a good run, though, here out of Beckett's and Chapel. We'll see here what the teammates do down the Hangar Straight.
Indeed, it'll be side by side. Brennan gives Perkett the inside line and lifts off to let him through. So now I think priority number 1 for Michael Brennan is to stay within a good margin of Perkett, as we saw Punter there on the inside of Stowe. He's actually stopped there and is towed back to the pit lane. That black flag for TJ was for the incident that turned Brodie Watts around at Luffield. We have more drivers coming into the pits meanwhile. TJ, of course, to service penalty, and Joe Capone for a pit stop. Now, here's what happened. TJ on the inside looked like he was going to go a bit wide at the apex anyway, as Watts came in around the outside, and rear quarter contact as a result. So flicking back then to Perkett and Brennan. These guys are now both down in 12th and 13th position. As we check back in with Gianni Lutzu, have a look at how much the gap has come down now. It's under 3 seconds to Thiago Massadou, and at this point, you'd think it's only a matter of time before Gianni gets the lead back. He took out even more that time, over half a second on the number 15.
Yeah, we're getting to the point now where it's going to get obviously dicey for Massadou. Probably can afford to come into the pits in the next lap or two, I would suggest. Doesn't want to chew up that margin that he's got, and indeed he will come to the lane here just inside the halfway marker in the race. If he can get good pace on fresh tyres and get back to the speed he was doing in clean air early on, that'll be critical for him as we see Lutzu stay out in the race lead. He'll swing around Comp's corner here and, well, retake the race lead that he's been sort of waiting to pick up. It sort of feels like for this time, it's Ray Oliver, Franz Esteban, and David Hughes who are next, or going to be next across the line. They're all yet to pit. We'll wait to see if any of them do this lap. It looks like Oliver staying out, Esteban staying out, and just waiting on David Hughes in a little while. The answer is going to be David Hughes joining Massadou in the pit lane there, Reese. So now waiting on just 3 drivers to complete their compulsory pit stop.
Indeed we are, one of them being our leader, Ray Oliver, as well, has yet to make his way into the pits. Does he this time around? No, avoids it. So for these guys who are trying to fight for top positions and trying to further their place in the race after issues early on, seems that the overcut is the way to go. Spend a bit more time on your first set of tyres. That is a pretty quick stop there from Thiago Massadou, 37.3. That is the quickest time we've seen stopped in the box so far, and 1 minute and 1 second pit lane transit time. So seems that Gianni is going to have to take that into account as he decides it's time to come into the pit lane.
Okay. Alternate theory, perhaps. We know that Gianni's fast and he's been consistently quick, but maybe is that a case of Thiago perhaps backing off to try and eke half a litre less fuel required in the pit stop, and he could afford to save that time lose time out on track to save time in the box here. We'll see what the transit and everything is like for Lutzu here in a moment's time. Just leaves your drivers in second and third place to come to the pits, and they are both staying out for 1 lap more as we go to the split view here to show you Lutzu in the pit lane, Massadou out on the circuit. It feels like an eternity in these kinds of pit stops. I mean, 40-minute sprint race, we've got a 40-second pit stop that needs to happen thanks to the splash of fuel and then the 4 tyre change. And Massadou swings around Luffield and Woodcote. Lutzu still up on the jacks and should clear him here in a moment's time. We'll see him there go in the background. Pardon me, there we go, as we fling into Comp's corner. So I think that's going to be advantage Massadou. We'll see what the time gap looks like when they come out of, get up to speed as Massadou's down into Maggie. I think he's extended that margin by maybe a second or so there, Reese. We'll have to wait and see here for timing and moments to update here as they get back up to speed.
Yeah. 4.8 seconds
okay, make
between
that a
the
good
2 of them.
2.5.
Yeah, so actually, I'm flip-flopping a little bit here, but it seems like undercut for Thiago Massadou has worked out in his favour, and crucially, that the pit stop was taken after the halfway point of the race, so that's even less time that Massadou will have to burn through his tyres. Should be an advantage for him. Disadvantage, meanwhile, for Ray Oliver, who had a little bit of a moment there coming into Brooklands. Ray seems to be having a lot of trouble with the rear end there, and no wonder. I think his rear tyres have given up the ghost as he comes into the pit lane to take the mandatory tyre change. He's followed by Franz Esteban.
And that therefore cleanses the field of the CPS requirements. So check back in with your effective leader and effective second-placed driver. Is that Massadou in the dirt? I think Massadou's about to throw this one away here, Reese.
Yeah, that
no
is...
apologies.
No, that's John Lee. Okay. That's a heart attack I didn't need. It's John Lee, unfortunately, with a big off there in Brooklands. There's Massadou just coming through Cops and Lutzu just behind. John Lee comes into the pits. That's going to be the third time he comes into the pits this race. And my goodness, I just saw a very bizarre incident that I think deserves a replay for John Lee. He has a lot of damage on that car, and it seems he didn't quite get the entry right into the lane. We hear our director burst out laughing in the background because this, what you're about to see, is definitely something that is highly unusual.
I
John
haven't
Lee
seen it yet.
rubs up against the wall, and boop.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh no is the word for that. And I think John Lee will be very frustrated with how that's happened for him. Making contact with the wall in the wrong place and sending the car up and over. Well then.
Is that
Hopefully he'll be
iRacing
able to
not
continue.
top 10 worthy?
Potentially.
He did land back on his wheels, so credit to John Lee. He did not end up turtle in the pit lane. That might have really sealed the deal as for should that be back on the list. Now, whilst we're back on the issue of the leaders here, could we get the graphics showing the pit stop time? Because we were sort of talking about 2.5 second delta. We did mention Gianni's time there, about 39 seconds stopped in the box. And if we shuffle forward to Tiago's number in the box, it explains a wee bit of the situation. And I think maybe lends more credence to the Tiago opting to fuel save whilst he had the time on track to do it.
Yeah.
Theory, perhaps.
Yeah, that could be it. That could be a bit of a big brain 40 chess move by Thiago Massadou to try and keep as much of a gap over Gianni Lutsu as possible once the pit stops were completed. As you mentioned, Dan, the more fuel you save out on track, the less time you spend in the pits, and you can end up re-equalizing that gap potentially, regardless of whether you were pushing hard on track or not. That sequence of words didn't make much sense, but I will swiftly move on from that. It's 4.2 seconds, the gap for the race lead. And we wait to see what kind of pace Lutsu will have on these fresh tyres as the rubber continues to be laid down around the racetrack. Awful lot of rubber on the way through club. So it seems that Lutsu can really push in that section. Ray Oliver, meanwhile, having completed his pit stop, has come out in 10th place, and he's just ahead of Ben Breyer. Well, not just ahead. The gap is 4.6 seconds, but Capone and Watts just up ahead of them, starting to fight a bit hard here. And it seems that Watts recently getting by Capone potentially does seem to have the measure of pace, but Watts has been a little bit scrappy this night of racing so far. We'll see if he can hold on to this, because Joe Capone is looking nice and stable here.
Yeah, I'm just having a look back at some information on the series so far because, well, as I say, I've been sort of in and out of commentary for this particular season. I actually should brush up on my history as to, well, has there been a moment where Gianni hasn't won any races? The answer is yes, that is correct. In fact, just last round, it was Thiago Massadou who won the feature race for the round at Phillip Island 3 weeks ago. So is Thiago on track for two feature race wins in a row here for the season as we keep an eye on that lead gap? It is coming down, though, and half a second, that's probably not ideal, but I still quickly check Massadou's lap time there. Is that his PB? No, not quite. Has done a 36.4 on fresh rubber, but yeah, Gianni Lutsu a 36.1 for his first flying lap. At the same time, when Thiago kind of slipped a little bit there and did a 36.9. So gonna have to be careful there, Thiago, to keep the pace up here as the laps tick down. Of course, time certain race means that there's no specific lap end goal, but I'm seeing 5 laps to go on my timing displays, which would take us up to 24 laps complete in this one as we focus on Joe Capone. Actually staying with Brody Watts here, keeping this fight for 8th potentially alive as they work their way through Bridge and Priory.
Yeah, and you see two different lines there that come out with roughly the same result. Capone was a lot more aggressive on the exit of Bridge and suffered a bit of understeer in Priory. Watts gave up time through bridge to widen the entry to Priory, and that has kept them roughly as far apart as they were when they entered that complex. So across the line they come with 7 minutes and 40 seconds to go, and looks like Capone is losing touch just a little bit there down the start-finish straight, but will stay within range if Watts makes a mistake. Now, with 7.5 minutes to go, the gap is at 3 seconds or so. 3.2 to be exact, between Masadou and Lutsu. If Gianni keeps gaining 4 or 5 tenths a lap, he won't be close enough when the clock hits 0.
Okay, but the question is, where will the clock hit 0 when they're on a lap? I think let's keep an eye on, well, what the gap is when they get to the line, I think, more than anything else, because that'll give us a better indication of, well, how much time can Tiago afford to lose. The answer is still not looking all that pretty, I might suspect. That's Joe Capone still keeping Brody Watts there honest for 8th place as they round Club Corner. But also looking around the track, who else have we got out on circuit? To be honest, at this stage, unfortunately, the cars are all a little spaced out of sorts, and this is about as close as it is with the exception of the race leaders. They've just gone across the line, gap 2.6 seconds, Reese, with an estimated 4 laps to go on my end. Question is, do they sneak a 5th? I don't think they will. I'd like to think that Joel Real Timing, which I use when commentating races like these, pretty solid when it comes to estimating a lap count in a time-certain race. But, yeah, Tiago, that's not going to be good enough with Gianni pumping out mid-36s.
Yeah. So, yeah, 7.762. That is a huge gap there. And I was about to say, with 4 laps to go at the line, Lutsu would have to take at least 7 tenths out of Tiago Masadou every lap to be pretty much side by side with him at the finish. And it looks like he's on track for that. So we are getting ready here, I believe, for a grandstand finish with Lutsu chasing down Masadou. Let's just hope that the both of them keep it as smooth as possible and we don't have an anticlimactic finish here, because it is definitely shaping up to be something special as they come into this incredibly twisty final sector, the complete antithesis to the rest of the circuit here. And the long, long right-hander of Luffield, it feels like it never ends, but you can get on the throttle and run across that curb, and now you have a little bit of a moment to rest through Woodcote and down towards Copse, a corner that's been changed a few times over the years. It actually runs a little bit inside of where it used to be, that apex. The corner's been cut short, basically, and then they get back onto the original route of the circuit, then they divert to the right. The track went straight on there, up towards the original Beckett's corner. This S-bend was added in 1991, and then on the exit of this right-hander, they get back onto the original route of the circuit once more through Chapel and down the Hanger Straight. So, now for Stowe, which is another corner that's been modified to run inside of where it used to go. And I think a better corner for it, personally. A really good section through Stowe and Vale and into Club. And then once again back onto the circuit's original layout here. And basically, if you take out that twisty final sector, this section plus Woodcote is the rest of the original layout at Silverstone. Waiting to see if there's any kind of mistake being made here, as the gap has come down to 1.7 seconds between these guys. Lutsu has been driving incredibly cleanly, but also ridiculously quick as well. There's barely any hint of a complaint from the rear end of that car, unlike what we briefly saw from him before. Let's see what lap times are set here, with our timing telling us 2 laps to go here, and that looks pretty much solid. 1:37.3 for Tiago, but Gianni Lutsu 1:36.8, and oh yes, Tiago Masadou just went off there at Copse.
I was going to say that lap just then, that's the kind of lap that Tiago needs one more of, and I think he might just have this in hand, but then immediately runs it in too deep through Copse Corner and sacrifices 4/10, nearly half a second in that one part of the track alone. Lutzu won't be quite getting the slipstream yet down the hangar straight here, Reese, but he's now will smell the blood in the water. That's the kind of thing you want to see when you're chasing down a potential race win, knowing you've got the driver in front a little rattled into overdriving the corner and therefore having to compromise the corner exit. You can see actually pulls about a 10th between the hangar straight and then down here into Club Corner. So getting better runs off the turns as well, and then picks another half 10th and change through Club itself. Going to be getting the whiff of the slipstream now as he ducks under 1 second as they flick up through Abbey. 1 lap and a little bit more to go here. In fact, actually no, Reese, we might be on for another lap here in a second because that clock is coming to 2 minutes. These guys are lapping in the 36s. We are going 2 more here.
Yeah, Barney will tell the truth here.
Surely.
If he doesn't have the white flag raised, then it won't be the final lap just yet. Yeah, it looks like they are going across the line with enough time to go to make it an extra lap from here. 1:37.5 for Thiago Massadou. And, well, unless both drivers slow it down a bit, this will be the penultimate lap of the race. And Gianni Lutzu is now within 7/10 of the car ahead. It's coming up to 6/10 as they make their way through the Beckett's S's. Massadou very aggressive over the curbs and a sharp turn in for the turn leading onto Chapel. And the hangar straight. They're coming up on a little bit of traffic as well, which might complicate things. That's Dean Hunt up ahead of them. And already on the headlight flash is Thiago saying to Dean, look, we're coming. Please be prepared to jump out of the way. We don't want this to be interrupted too much. But now Lutzu is only a couple of car lengths behind Thiago Massadou. Could this be the lap where Lutzu takes the lead back? Brilliant exit out of Club. And he carries that momentum all the way through Abbey. Will the move be made at bridge? Here we go indeed. Massadou cannot defend here. As Lutzu, oh, he tries to fire it in, but Massadou enters the corner a bit more aggressively. Lutzu backed out. Here we go. Oh, no, Lutzu could have... Oh, lock up from Massadou. Okay, he's going to have to defend here into Luffield. Lutzu tries around the outside of that long corner, but Massadou parks it on the apex there. Stymies the run a little bit. He's going to try and go defensive, and onto the grass goes Gianni Lutzu. He's not happy with that. It is the final lap now. White flag here at Silverstone. I can only think, Dan, it's a matter of time here before Lutzu makes his way past.
The slipstream is so incredibly strong for these cars in their setup configuration. On board with Massadou on the top of the screen. The outboard shots. And indeed, the wobble through maggots for Lutzu. Going to give a small breather, but at the same time, if he gets the exit off Beckett's and Chapel here, that's a good bit of space to run into here. Down the hangar straight, and that looked wide from Massadou. Off of Beckett's as well, for good measure, as they close at the end of the straightaway here. Will he fire to the inside for Stowe? He will, but he's not there again. Massadou turns it down on the racing line. Will says, you're not there. That's my corner, my apex to take. And I mean, that's going to be the kind of stuff he has to do now. Out to half a second as we come with half a lap to go here, Reese. Putting it on here, right to the beer, and he'll now use the track limits as he can. Out of Club Corner. He's burning up the lap distance well, but we saw there on that last lap, Priory, Brooklands, and Luffield, all three. Very easy to get them overdone, and he's very hot into bridge. This could be close.
It could be indeed. Lutzu carries a bit more speed through Priory. He dives up the inside into Brooklands, but he can't get it done. Massadou, I think, has just enough here to finish this race in the lead. That was Gianni Lutzu's last chance there. He's too far back to get anything done now. Thiago Massadou comes across the line and takes the feature win here at Silverstone. He remains the only other driver to win a race this season other than Gianni, who has dominated the season so far. It's on for 8th and 9th, meanwhile, between Watts and Oliver.
It's also on for 7th. We've got Clint Harvey in this all there as well. As they come in to Brook, there's another car running in deep there through Brooklands. There's Brody Watts trying to get the thing pulled up and driven out of Luffield Corner. Trying to chase down Clint Harvey there in the 55 Energy Motorsport machine as well. In fact, Harvey slow Low
Out of
on
fuel?
fuel. They're both going to run round the outside through Woodcote. And it will be P7 for Brodie Watts, P8 for Ray Oliver, and Clint Harvey limps it home into P number 9 there for him, unfortunately. And well, how's that for some fireworks to end this race? Just when I thought Masadou had done just enough. So we're going to go to the virtual race to replay on board here with Clint Harvey in the 55. Reese pulls third.
And then into fourth
Cough.
and nothing. Oh, goodness me. That's heartbreaking there for Clint
Well,
in the final
unfortunately
few
there.
meters of the race.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate to say the least. But, well, I'm sure Thiago Masadou would have rather preferred that checkered flag to come one lap earlier. But he beat the checkered flag by all of about 5 seconds. Well, beat the white flag coming out early. I think by all of about 5 seconds there. So 25 lap race. And here are your results at the end of it all. 3.5 tenths is all that separated Thiago Masadou and Gianni Lutsu at the line. But, well, as I said, Reece, you take that one lap earlier, it was pretty much nothing as they came out of Luffield, and Lutsu looking for the inside up through Woodcote where there wasn't a car's width. Rob Crisdale will round out the podium in a quiet-ish night for him there in the 808 machine. Likewise for Michael Brennan, makes moves forward tonight and leapfrogs his teammate Nick Perk out there to make it 2:45 for 9.5 Sim Sports tonight here in these races. Trevor Hearn brings it home there in 6th ahead of teammate Brodie Watts, sneaking through to 7th place. Ray Oliver, the next of our Frog Leap Juiced racing cars, in 8th ahead of the not stricken, but certainly a little bit starved 55 of Clint Harvey there in 9th, with Joe Capone there to round out your top 10 in the next of the Racecraft simulation cars.
Starting 4th was Ben Braya. He comes home in 11th after some issues out on track. Franz Esteban, meanwhile, actually gains a position and finishes in 12th. David Hughes gains 7 spots to finish in 13th. TJ, unfortunately, with a penalty over his head for that contact with Brodie Watts, has to settle for 14th place. Ridley 15th, Brockbank 16th, also with a penalty from race control. We have Dean Hunt, Jonathan Ackers, Mike Pepper and Barry Punter all a lap down. And unfortunately, John Lee, after his incident in the pits, was not able to make it to the end. And with that, now I'm taking a look at the championship standings here that have just been updated on the league page. Gianni Lutsu on 865 points, Thiago Masadou 652 points. Kyle Ridley into 3rd place in the championship, just 7 points ahead of Michael Brennan. So that's going to be an interesting final round coming up. We'll talk about that in a second because we've got driver interviews to go for. Gianni Lutsu joins us in the commentary box after finishing 1st in race 1, 2nd in race 2. Another good performance from you, Gianni, maintaining that championship lead, but that fight at the end of race 2 was really something to witness from the commentary box. How was it for you?
Thanks, Reece. Yeah, another good night in the office. Obviously, really good night again. I think the pace is just always sort of there, and I think it's just a really sort of good testament to how good sort of the preparation is for these sort of events. But race 2 was pretty interesting. I mean, obviously coming from 12th, it does make it a little bit harder, especially at a track like this where it's quite tight. But in the stop, I think my crew chief told me to put too much fuel in, and I sort of was 2 seconds slower than Tiago's stop. So it obviously created a bit more work for me. But we sort of churned out the laps, and we had quite a big pace advantage over him. But unfortunately, we just couldn't quite cut it at the end. But I think it's really good to see other drivers sort of having that pace up the front, and really being able to be quite consistent, because obviously what makes this league so exciting.
What do you think sealed it on the final lap of race 2? Because we noticed that you had a big oversteer moment coming into Maggots, but then there were also a few attempts made in the final sector where it felt like for a second you might be able to get past.
Yeah, I think I was probably a bit too optimistic at the end of Hager Straight. I think it was there, trying to get down the inside into there. I obviously did a few moves on a few cars earlier in the race into there, so I was like, oh, maybe I might be able to pull it off. But unfortunately, it just didn't give me enough sort of push into the end of the lap to kind of, get me up to the back of him again, and obviously be close enough to put a move in. But yeah, I think, especially this older version of Silverstone, it does make it a little bit difficult to sort of pass. So I guess, yeah, and it was a shame that I only kind of had one lap to do it, because I didn't really have a lot of time to think about what I was wanting to sort of set it up with. But yeah, nonetheless, it was a good race, and yeah, obviously I think we might have wrapped up the championship after this round here, so that gives me a bit more calmness coming to the last round, so it's always good.
Yeah, indeed. Well, congratulations there, Gianni, if that is indeed the case. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, obviously, big thank you to the team at 95 Sim Sports, obviously, all of their sponsors. Big thanks to Michael and Nick for jumping in again for another round tonight. And yeah, obviously, big thanks to you guys for holding the live stream, and thanks to Cam and all the guys involved at VRace for holding this event, obviously. And yeah, obviously, really another good round tonight. And yeah, as I said, I think that's the championship done. So now we can put the legs up a little bit and have a bit of fun in the last round. So yeah, looking forward to it. And yeah, we'll see how we go in the last one.
Indeed we shall. That's Gianni Lutsu there, race 1 winner and race 2 second place. Also in the commentary booth with us is Rob Crisdale, who managed to grab third at the end of race 2. Dan's going to have a chat with him.
Thank you there, Reese. Well, pretty good night there for you, Rob, sort of making your way forward as the race went on. I guess looking back at qualifying for starters for you, starting out of race 1 and 12, were you sort of hoping to be a little bit further up the field to get that opening race underway tonight?
You bet. But that's my arch nemesis is qualifying. I never, for some reason, I just can't extract pace in qualifying, and always have to come through the field. But that's the way it goes. So, yeah, race 1 sort of was good that we got it up a few places, and then race 2 had to try and make the most of it, knowing that those guys, the racecraft, were behind. So Nick and Gianni, so. Had to get my skates on right from the start, basically.
You sure did there, but you did a good job, it looked like, on the opening laps there of the second race to get clear of the early pole sitters there and actually sort of start building a bit of a margin back to those guys trying to make their way through, because there was quite the train starting to build behind a couple of the guys who had started towards the front of race 2. I guess, obviously, knowing that you've got those fast guys coming through with the inverted grid, I guess, in your mind, so we didn't probably get a chance to really look at how you were going tonight all that much, but were you thinking about trying to really defend your place there in that second race all that much, or was it more a case of just consolidation to try and get a solid result all the same for you there tonight?
Probably the latter, probably consolidation, but I was, I knew Gianni was coming. I was going to thought I might try and make it hard for him, but I did try and squeeze him up against the wall a little bit, but I thought, that's not going to end too well, so the kid's pretty quick, so as we know, so good, well done to Gianni for the championship, so good on him. Yeah. So you can just tell, out of corners, all that sort of stuff. He's just got the raw pace, so it was always going to end that way. So that's the way it is.
He certainly has been hard to beat in this series when it comes to sheer pace. Well, as you said, one more round to go in a couple of weeks' time. Watkins Glen International, which will be your host for that venue. And, well, it's going to be a lot of high-speed drafting for the most part, because you'll be running the classic boot configuration, so there's no bus stop on the back stretch to negotiate there. Any thoughts on what that might look like for you in a couple of weeks' time, and what you're hoping to get out of that round?
Hopefully I'm talking to you. That's my goal. At least talking on the podium next week, so the next round. So I don't mind Watkins Glen, so we'll see.
Well, there we go. Indeed, certainly would be good to have a chat with you. All things going well next week. Before we let you go, Rob, who do you want to thank tonight? Sponsors, shout-outs. The floor here is yours.
Yeah, well, shout out to the guys in the team, to all our sponsors who make it happen, basically. So Juiced Energy, All Ports Gaming, Toyo Sim, the Pet Door Company, and FH Creative. Thanks to those guys.
Well, there we are. Rob Crisdale, third in the feature race tonight. Thank you very much for joining us here in the commentary box. And, well, we'll just quickly check the championship standings. Unofficial at this stage, pending final reviews from the race control team tonight. Reese, in case there were any that we missed hearing about during the race. But, indeed, it will take quite a lapse of judgment, shall we say, from Gianni Lutsu and championship points penalties, if they do apply in the series, to see him lose the championship. next time out. 213 points to the good on Thiago Massadou. And if I remember correctly, there's only about 180 up for grabs for a clean sweep.
Yeah, indeed, 180 up for a clean sweep. So it'll be challenging for Thiago to come back and take the championship from Gianni, but there's still a slim possibility there. So let's see what goes on in the final round of the championship here at Watkins Glen. Wednesday, February 22nd at 9:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. So make sure that you tune in for that final race of the season at what should be a very scintillating, action-packed race at a very high-speed classic American circuit. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching. We want to give one final thanks to our series sponsors, V8 Drive Day Perth, Word of Mouth Signs, VRace Experience, Motum Simulation, and Liquid Moly. Also a big shout-out to 24/7 Sim Services for handling race control duties. My name's Reese Gardner, Dan Yeaman with me in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy popping in at the start and handling everything behind the scenes. And we'll see you for the next round of the Formula V Australia E-Series as well, run by Southern Cross ESports, at the Oran Park circuit. And that is next Wednesday. I'm going to be racing, and David Haynes and Scott Rankin will be in the commentary box for that one. So, thanks very much, everybody, for watching once more. This has been the V8 Drive Day Perth Southern Cross Esports Summer Series. We'll see you next time.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.